check.
Dr. Simon?
Yeah.
We just got an email. When is the LSC meeting starting? I'm on the link. No one is allowing me in.
Okay, let me see right here. All right, we're live. Yeah, they should be able to log in.
Cool. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just writing it. Koya. She logged in, but we didn't see her at some point. So, okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lincoln Park High School Local School Council. This is our February meeting, and so I'd like to go ahead and call it to order. We were in closed session to discuss a couple things about some student survey and some principal evaluation items. And now we're in our public session. We have already taken roll. So, you know, I'm not going to go through that, but basically just I'll say that we have, you know, parent representatives, teacher representatives, the principal, community members, and student representatives, and we all get together once a month to meet. And in the meantime, we do a bunch of stuff. And maybe you know all that. I'm sorry, I just don't know that I recognized everyone. I just thought I would give that as a little overview. But we have a couple items of business to take care of. And the first one is public participation, where we let anyone in the room come up and make a statement, or if we have anyone online, they're welcome to make a statement. We just ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes. But we'd love to hear from anyone if you have anything to share. Yeah, please come on up to the podium.
We need a microphone.
And yes, if you don't mind, the microphone, we can hear you, but online they can't. So thank you.
So how's it going, everybody? My name is Andreas Flores. I am the new head football coach here at Lincoln Park High School. I recently took over about a month ago. So I'd like to thank Principal Steinmiller and Coach Ludwig for giving me this opportunity to push this program into new heights and get us like state and city recognition. I think it's a great spot to be in. This could be like a mecca of sports and academics here at Lincoln Park. Just wanted to be here just to introduce myself, just to get to know you guys, kind of show my face. If you guys ever need anything from me or my team, you know, community service, anything like that, I am hands down. I'm down for it, whatever you need. If you'd like to contact me, my email is arflores10@cps.edu. Again, feel free to reach out to me. Looking forward to working alongside you guys and working with you guys. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming and taking time to speak.
I do see it. Night. I do see some virtual hands up.
Okay, great. Please online.
Let me see. Wait, I thought I saw a hand up. No, I did. Okay. There we go.
Hello, I'm sorry. It's hard with, with technology. I'm
No
Erin
problem.
Copeland. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I am a parent of 2 children at Lincoln Park High School in the Performing Arts program and the drama program. And so my junior, she's been there for 3 years, and my freshman. One of the things that I have noticed that really has not changed, and this is regarding just the drama program and all performing arts programs, unfortunately, is the I guess the climate and culture of the auditorium and the facility. I know there was a facilities roundtable. Unfortunately, I work for the Chicago Public Schools, so I'm inundated with doing a lot of work to advocate for a lot of things. But I'm now advocating on behalf of this program that is wonderful, that I appreciate. But I will say the auditorium is not at the standard because that I would expect for a fine arts magnet program. Specifically, I guess it was like an eyesore when I saw, and I keep on saying it every year, the curtain has a tear in it. And that just makes me so sad. I really think that kids.
Yes. Yes. Oh, wait, she might be back. There we go. I brought her back.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, where did you lose me?
Tear in the,
Here, right. I mean, specifically, like, that is, it shows like, we have to make the kids feel they're important. And just the tear, just even the tear, it's just there, it's just hanging there. So, like, my hope is that, and I don't know how budget works in magnet programs, and if there's specifically money that can be allocated in that specific area. Like, does the performing arts program, how is that done? My hope is that we can improve the aesthetics, the cosmetic environment for the kids, and so they can really put on a performance that they're really proud of. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to be a part of a team. I would love for it to move, so I don't have to say this the same time with my second kid going through the program.
Thank you very much, Ms. Copeland. We don't respond during the public comment, so we've heard you, and you know, we'll try to find a way to. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I
No,
can say
it's
right
fine.
now. But
No,
thank
no,
you
no.
very much.
I just wanted to share my thoughts and hoping for a plan of action to move forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there another
one
hand?
more hand. Mr. KB.
All right. Mr. Cavey.
Okay.
All right. Hi, Mr. Cavey. We see you, although it seems like you may be muted.
All right. Can everybody see me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you, and hear you. Thanks so much.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Dr. Steinmiller asked me to come by here today and speak a little bit about a pretty awesome program that I'm working with here at Lincoln Park, that I've been working with for a number of years, that is about to eat up a not unsmall chunk of money through the school budget. So let me talk a little bit about it. Many of you are parents at Lincoln Park, parents of students at Lincoln Park, and one of the reasons you chose Lincoln Park, as we were just hearing about from that last parent, is we have some incredibly powerful programs going on here in terms of both academics and athletics. Yeah, we also have something that nobody else in CPS has, and that's the ability for actual high schoolers to be published in scientific journals and present at scientific conferences. Yeah, so if anyone's sitting here with one kid here and one kid at Lane, your kid's getting a better education here because they have that opportunity. They don't have that anywhere else. And this program is called Model a Protein Story. I've been doing it since 2017 in conjunction with Milwaukee School of Engineering Center of Biomolecular Modeling and 3D Molecular Designs. They're a private company in which students research a particular protein and then use X-ray crystallography data and NMR data to design a 3D printed model, and then a poster, which they present alongside with graduates, undergraduates, postdocs at the American Society of Biotechnology and Molecular Biology's annual conference. As a result, in their participation, students also develop a scholarly abstract, which does get published in the conference's peer-reviewed journal. So students who participate in this program not only have the great experience of practicing their 3D printing skills, their coding skills, and of course, the all-important scholarly research skills, but they walk out of this school with at least one, if not multiple, citations under their name. And anyone who's worked in higher ed know the line is, I believe, publish or perish. And here students get an opportunity to actually publish. We've had in the we're in year 8, and in those 8 years, we've had about 45 students published. And unlike a lot of high-end scholarly programs, this actually is designed to be accessible to all students. By trade, I'm a special education teacher. And that's the population I primarily serve. So this is not a program that's just exclusively IB and AP students. We have had students with 504s, with IEPs. I've had students on my caseload participate this or for my classes. We have almost always a majority students of color. We almost always are majority females.
Mr. KB, just 30 seconds more, please. We allow 2 minutes per person. Please go
Got it.
ahead. Yeah.
All at no cost to students. This is the only program I can think of where students will get published, will be able to present at a science conference, and will get a trip that is at no cost to them. So there's no barriers to entry other than kids' effort. This is a program that has been supported across multiple administrations, and I got to praise both the past and current administration for continuing to make this a priority, because literally no other school in CPS does this, and very few schools do it to the quality that we have as consistently over these past 7 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, please come on up.
Hello, my name is Jenny Perez. I'm a parent, alum. I currently volunteer throughout Lincoln Park High School, wherever there's a spot needed or wherever there's hands that you guys need. I go to the games, even when my student's not involved, things like that. So I'm very involved here. I love Lincoln Park. One of the things I am a big advocate for is the Fine and Performing Arts program. Currently, right now, there is a play coming up. It's actually a musical, Something Rotten, which will be taking place March 6th, 7th, and 8th. Several times for that. But I did want to mention, with the shows that we have here, us parents, we have a group of parents, drama mamas and papas that I am the chair of, and currently been, helping out. Although I do not have a student in the drama program, I continue to support them. But one of the things that we have noticed, especially with the last 2 shows, is that us parents are having to move and clear out space out in the lobby area to enter the auditorium. We just wish that with the date set in the calendar, that it would be prepared for a nice entrance to go into these shows so that we can raise the funds and have it prepared for us. We've had to move I guess the metal detectors that students probably use throughout their entrances into the school. So I think it's just one of those things that, hey, if we are a fine and performing arts school, that's one of the things that we offer here. Why can't we have that entrance, nice and clean and ready for a big performance that students have been, preparing for and wanted to show off their talents. So that's just one of those things. But I will say I was also chaperoning at the field trip or downstate competition theater, a competition that they had. They brought here back to Lincoln Park a plaque. So I just want to share good notes as well, that we do have a very great drama department, talented students, and hopefully we're able to see that plaque displayed. I don't know if it currently is, but there is a plaque that we brought back to Lincoln Park.
Thank you so much for coming to speak. We appreciate it. Anyone else in the room? Yeah, hi.
Hi, my name is Leslie Gonzalez. My parents used to go here. My son graduated from here. I have a daughter that's a freshman and probably a soon to be freshman in the coming year. I just kind of want to mimic on what Jenny was saying about the auditorium and stuff like that. Also, there's ugly tear in the curtain, and it's very noticeable. And I think the curtain's been up since it was Waller back in the day. But I just wanted to mimic off of Jenny, and I think somebody else was online talking about theater and stuff. So I remember when I was going here, there was quite a few
people that are now in the industry that I can still call my friends, and it's, you know, I think it'd be nice to also see maybe some of the pictures of people that graduated from here and seeing their transition and whatnot. So give someone a little extra, something to look at and maybe read while they're in theater, kind of buying their tickets or concession or whatnot. But that's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Looking? I do not see. Hold on. I would like to speak.
All right. Okay, so we're going to move on with our agenda. The next is the review and approval of minutes from our January 11th meeting. So Ted Smith, thanks for sending those out. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the January meeting? Mr. Coddens first. Is there a second? Miss Jane Rosenthal, thank you. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Next item is celebrations for Lincoln Park High School. This is a time when we ask for people to spotlight, shout out, highlight things they've seen that have been going well recently at Lincoln Park High School or in the community. Jane?
The dance team did go to nationals, and I believe they placed third in the nation, which is very exciting. And I have friends on the dance team, and everyone's really excited. So it's great that we can get our name out there and kind of celebrate our teams.
That's great. Pretty good. It's fantastic. Is there success due to your coaching? Okay. We have a space here if you want to show us the moves, Ted. Okay. All right.
Where's the game?
That's fantastic. So they beat Lindblom and then also Kenwood, was it?
Yeah, we played Lindblom. One of a Bulls player was actually in our audience watching the game. I think he may have been rooting for Lindblom, but whatever. So he got to walk away with a loss. And then it was a back and forth game with versus Kenwood at Kenwood on wait, what day is today? Oh, this week. Whatever day it was, a Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, we hosted Selfless for Scott. We're able to beautify our cafeteria, had 200 plus volunteers putting together care pack. Am I stealing your thunder? Were you about to say that?
No, you could do it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, but
But putting together like care packages, supplies for families in need. Ms. Pulvita was a huge part of putting this together, so I appreciate you being a part of making that happen. So it's really awesome. A lot of tears, a lot of celebration, celebrating the life of Scott. And so they bragged on our security, our custodians, Miss Hurd, everybody for just making it a welcoming space. And so that was pretty cool.
and Scrum's class.
And Miss Grimm's class. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah, Miss Grimm's class participated and we're part of it with the artists putting it together. Miss Grimm was also celebrated during the event for dedicating instructional time and support to make it happen. And Mr. and Ted Lindenbringer was also celebrated on Tuesday. Tuesday was a very busy day. Was also celebrated by the Sheffield Neighborhood Association. I know Mr. Kessler was there. Just really proud of him and the work he does to support all of our students. So it was pretty fantastic.
The winter formal was held at the House of Blues, and there was a lot of dancing that occurred by a lot of people. I think everyone had a good time. I understand that financially we not only broke even, but earned a little bit of revenue. So that's great. Oh, really? Oh,
Right. TBD.
okay. So we do. All right. But mostly broke even, I think, at least, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get that. Great. You're further ahead. The event itself was great. 44 students who needed financial support to attend received it. I think we need to do better on advance notice there, but I do think that it was a successful event. So that's something to highlight. That's something else.
And
too.
thank you to the Friends of for their Friends of and parents for making that happen. Miss Theus, I know I appreciate all your work in making these events happen for our students. So I appreciate you.
Um, I also later we'll have an update from Friends of about a trivia night last night where apparently the math department was well represented, showing their dominance in all things trivia. But we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move forward. Let's see. So now the LSC Budget Subcommittee. I'll turn over to our chair, Mr. Brad Kessler.
Thank you. I'll start off by mentioning that we are about to be entering into budget season. We've gotten significant feedback in the past about trying to increase transparency, try to include PPLC and other department chairs more so. Laura and I, as part of the budget subcommittee, and Dr. Steinmiller, we've had some spirited debate about how to make sure that we are very inclusive and that we have proactive budget planning. So February 15th, we'll be sending this around as an open meeting, but we will be having a budget brainstorm of just really more than anything on process and on protocols at 3:30 for 2 hours. So I know I referenced it last meeting that we're going to try to aim for it in January, but it's going to be in February. So we're looking forward to that. One thing I know, and I appreciate that Angelica has been communicating about processes and procedures for dances and for formals and whatnot. So one thing that we have inside of the fundraiser tab, if you can go to that, Dr. Steinmiller, just so the LSC knows where the information is, when we approve something, it ends up going into this spreadsheet tracker. So in July, after feedback that we'd given to Dr. Steinmiller in prior years, the administration presented a series of fees for our approval. This is an opportunity both through the budget conversation that I hope individuals are able to attend, but also in future meetings, such as the July meeting, that we debate this. We debate if we want to approve certain types of dances or ticket fees, but also in this spreadsheet, if you scroll over, as part of our fundraising form, you can see what both the selling price is and what the anticipated revenue and expenses and fundraising profit, because these are set up as fundraisers right now. So I wanted to point that out. I did, although I've been properly informed by Ms. Lopez and Dr. Steinmiller, probably not the best place for this, but if you go to another tab that I came up with quickly over the middle of the week called events, you'll see with Winter Formal that ticket sales were at $57,300. Costs were $55,600 and some change. The net, so the theoretical, fundraising dollar amount would be the $1,600 or so, but there's still an outstanding invoice. And I personally, and myself and Laura and Dr. Steinmiller, we have not, as an LSC subcommittee, gone back and audited fundraising events afterwards. Now, Ms. Lopez ends up getting it 10 days after. This is the proper procedure. Gets the information 10 days after closing the fundraising activity. So Ms. Lopez gets it, and we've actually now put it into our procedures of reviewing it then those 10 days after. Again, we haven't done this before, but it is a necessary and certainly in hindsight, a best practice to do. So I wanted to highlight that over there. So if we start out with fundraiser approvals, we heard about the upcoming Something Rotten in public comment. There's 4 different fundraising requests from Ross Freilich related to Something Rotten. So March 6th to 8th, as we heard in public comment. One is the approval for selling tickets in the $8 to $15 range. The other is selling concessions, and that is in the $1 for water, $2 for chips or so, or candy. Selling raffle tickets for a basket, largely at $5 each or 5 for 20, and selling flowers at the production for $5. I will be clear that we didn't have a lot of time in our subcommittee to approve these, whether it's the fundraisers, the budget transfers. So in general, something Dr. Steinmiller has commented in the past, that if we approve it out of subcommittee, we only need to second it here. But I'm going to make a motion starting out because we didn't have an opportunity to approve out a sub. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the 4 fundraising activities as part of Something Rotten musical that's upcoming.
Second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Looks like it's unanimous. Thanks.
Okay. So if we go over to budget transfers, I wanted to raise one item that I would propose that we have a separate meeting on and that we discuss it again, if we can, in open session. But we talk specifically about basketball fund, the basketball funds that were provided for a New Balance contract. That was a $25,000 amount that was loaned to the basketball program. Folks on the LC, remember, we didn't approve or disapprove that. It came out of the student fee permission at the time. We are still waiting on seeing those dollars come back into internal accounts. And so something that we talked about at length in the budget subcommittee is making sure that we have a specific dedicated meeting where we're talking about that and we're learning more about this as an LSC so that we have full transparency. So I'll say that did occupy a decent amount of the time of the subcommittee. So I'm going to ask Dr. Steinmiller to present the budget transfers because again, we didn't have time enough to kind of debate over it and to approve it out of subcommittee.
Majority of these that you see, I'm going to push it up here. You can see if you look at the justification, you'll see a lot of these are OST associated for instructional materials associated with different clubs and groups. For the most part, you'll see some others that are associated with that are outside of that. So OST goes down to about line 204. We go below that, you start seeing money for the athletic department. A lot of stuff we're putting towards is for our buses. We see on the $5,000 a larger amount. That's for paper for our teachers in our school. We print things, we need it, so we need paper. These are coming out of benefit pointer lines. So over the course of the year, as if there are funds that are available that aren't being spent out by a teacher's position or something like that, or somebody's hired and they're at a lower pay rate than somebody else, money drops over the year when it's not being expended at the same rate in which CPS anticipates it. So every month we have some type of drop. We're utilizing these funds to pay for the things that we need. Some being like technology supplies. I know there's a variety of things from printers that are broken, resources from Mr. Hardesty. And so you see those are the ones that are really outside. Office supplies, and when our departments put in requests for markers and things. So most of this at the top part here is really just for supplies that we need for our school to function. You do see a lot of OST funds, things for the weightlifting and boxing OST club. You do see water bottles for the nurses is something separate. It's 134. Again, some of these aren't big ticket items, but the big ones in there are really for paper and text. So that's kind of the top part. The lower part, again, benefit lines. You see some materials for the science department, $3. You also see postage for us to be able to make. We have to mail things, and so this is the postage we need to be able to mail things out of CPS. And then you see the $8,783. That is the trip that Mr. KB was speaking about, which we have 15 students who will go to San Antonio to present their papers. This is something we're also working with the Friends of Lincoln Park High School. They're paying half. They're covering the hotel stay and are assisting with some of the registration, other things associated with it. So this is just the travel part and splitting it with them. This is a larger number than we normally have. Usually it's 5 students. Now we have 15. This is a pretty big deal. Working with Friends of, we're trying to also work on a media aspect of this where it'll be published. We'll have some production. You'll actually see some photo op in March. And this is the kind of thing that I want CPS putting on their identity of what CPS is all about. So this is a pretty significant thing because as Mr. KB is a very energetic. That was the most calm I think I've ever seen Mr. KB as he speaks about this. This is really cool. I mean, just absolutely unique. So that's what the 8,783. It's aligned with instruction. I know money is tight, but this is something that I think we just cannot not support. So those are the items that I present. Any questions or clarifications?
I think the idea of getting some promotion out of it is important so that people feel good about these type of investments. Had he not come, we would not know. I happen to know because I think came into a meeting last year I was in, but it's really cool. And I think even providing links to the papers published. I think for other students and parents to see, oh my God, there's another kid in high school who's publishing in a scientific journal on cellular molecular biology. Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I think that I'm glad to see that. I would encourage us to do, particularly more.
So is there, I move that we approve these transfers.
All right, is there a second? Alicia? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 9. All those opposed? 10, 11. Okay. Any abstain? I don't think so. Okay, so the motion passes.
Can I make one other comment?
Yeah.
Budget wise. Something inside of our budget subcommittee, as we try to understand kind of the security of our funds moving forward as a school. We've run through a lot of the rainy day fund. In fact, there really isn't a rainy day fund. This is why budgeting is so important in decision making, whether it's putting dollars towards curtains in the theater or towards trips or towards any number of things. And so I care about making sure it's really inclusive. I wanted to make a comment that the benefit pointer line that shows up here, that's often a differential between who is hired compared to who's budgeted for that position. So when there's a higher budgeted position, but somebody that's hired at a lower salary, there's a differential that drops, that so-called drops, the dollars drop into a line. And so I'm really hoping, and I truly appreciate that Laura and I are a team on this, and Dr. Steinmiller, like we have to make sure, especially going into next year's budget, that we're really purposeful, even more so. And ideally, what I'm going to be advocating for, I know Laura also is advocating for, is just really proactive knowledge that we have, so that we have a lot greater, insight at the beginning of the year when we're spending dollars towards certain things. Yeah.
And if I could just make another comment to that, I think what we want to do is incentivize departments to have a foresight as far as what they're going to be needing for the next school year, so that we're not just allocating funds when the hand comes out, right? So we want to make sure that we're giving equitable money to those departments and even athletic teams. And so it's super important to plan ahead and kind of have a vision for what we're going to be spending for the next school year. Because, we want to make sure that everybody has an equal chance to get some of those budget transfers.
I just want to talk about briefly why I voted no. I have some notes. So I'm a little concerned that this LSC is normalizing just saying yes to everything. We spent around 60 that was approved in July for this winter formal. We may be in the hole, but we're still spending money. The school, I don't know who agreed to this, spent 24,000 on a new balanced budget. We have none of that money back. So I feel like we need to reassess what we're doing here culturally. Like, how are we just spending money? People really need stuff here. Teachers need stuff. Non-teaching staff need stuff. And we don't get the bare minimum things, but we're spending money without really assessing what we're doing. And I appreciate you are trying to do that now, but we got to really think about this stuff. These are public funds.
I'm not sure. It depends on the direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose, I think, is we want to understand the process that was followed for the communication around the deal, and then what was asked of families, what's been received, follow the money, So yeah, happy to do that. We could set up a special meeting if you'd like to do that. Would you, I guess, Brad, why are you proposing that be a special meeting rather than a budget subcommittee deep dive?
Just because I think
you suggesting
yeah,
that?
no, I'm suggesting a full LSC meeting because
Okay.
I think that it is something that was, it was debated about, and I think part of the acquiescence of the LSC, although I still believe that it was in Dr. Steinmiller's authority to approve it without us, was this feeling that we were going to get the dollars back.
Yeah.
And so with our internal accounts running so low, and certainly feedback that LSC members share, I think that it should be an LSC conversation, understand what
Yeah, well, and I
happened.
think we should invite people who are part of that process. So yeah, I'm fine to answer the question, I'm fine to do a special public meeting about that in the next couple weeks. Like we have our March meeting, I think, forget the date, but we could do it like between now and then. Does that seem like a good time, or is there a reason to wait any further?
I think ahead of that meeting too, I think we need to get better understanding as far as the communication that was given to the parents. So they understood what this entailed, that it was a loan, right? That it wasn't a gift. So maybe we also need to see some internal accounts. And I know that that's sensitive information. So I want to make sure that we ask nicely and that we have this information before our meeting so we can review it.
I think it's a great point. Go ahead.
I was never.
Well, do we know
yeah,
that?
I was never under the impression that this was a loan at all. I thought we were paying. Well, I say we, but
Yeah. Yeah, it was a front. It was in advance.
yeah, I don't think I thought it was a loan. I thought it was like you said, we debated or at least discussed in good faith what we thought about it, whether or not we thought it was like a worthwhile investment. But as you mentioned, that it was like a decision for Dr. Steinmiller as principal and his decision alone to pay 25 grand or whatever it was to New Balance for this sponsorship. I was never under the impression that it was a loan. Sounds like other people thought it was, but again,
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think-
like something I approved or anything, right? I'm not in charge of this school. It was
Right.
someone
right.
else's choice.
For their kit, they're getting the details of what each get, and then they would be charged to them.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, that money was to be paid back to the school. We bought the school bought the uniforms up front because New Balance didn't want it. They wanted an upfront payment, and then he would charge each student, and then that money would come back to the school.
And there was a timing. The reason it was fronted is because they needed to order the stuff by a certain date to have the equipment for the season. So we said, okay, here's some money. I mean, we talked about it. Again, that wasn't an administrative decision, but so yeah, I think we should do it. I think also, Laura, it's a great idea. We should request in advance documents that we would like to review so we can come prepared, because otherwise we're going to sit and talk and then say, well, let's see stuff to me another month. So I think that would be great. And I think if we give them like 1 week to produce the documents, I don't think it's extensive, but all right. In terms of coming up with what the requests of the documents are, do you feel like you have in mind what those might be? I mean, could it, like outside the meeting, could you come up with that and we could do that? Yeah. Okay.
Bill payments. Bank statements, unfortunately, like because the way that the funds were received were probably in personal bank accounts. So they would have to redact anything that wasn't pertinent to the request. I mean, I just want to be very sensitive to people's privacy, but we do need to see kind of where the money kind of came in and where it left. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this goes to not just this, but like how our athletic programs work.
Yeah.
I think this is a bigger picture of like, we have a bunch of different athletic programs using boosters or different processes, and we have to streamline this. It's like for collecting of any fees or funds. And I think as an LSC, we need to come to, this is just what it is. And we need to make sure that we establish this very clearly, because all the teams are doing things very differently. And there's things I've requested that we'll get for some data on this. But right now I need time to get that information to be able to share it.
Well, and that, just to piggyback on that, I just would like to say again, let's use this as a learning experience for how to plan in the future so that we don't have this kind of, parents kind of taking control for advocating for certain expenditures for their, athletes, but at the same time too, what are best practices, right? So we need to establish those procedures. We're going to use this as an example.
And I.
But those are the things I can communicate too, that again, we have independent teams with their own 503C. We have one, I don't know, we have, what's one, right? And we have then a general booster that isn't doing the fundraising, it's just holding money for certain teams. Then we have some that are internal to the school that all their money is through the school. And then, so that's 3 examples of 3 different ways in which 3 groups of teams are doing things differently. So what I'm just saying is I would like for us to come together to streamline processes so that we don't have A, B, and C options. If it's that every team creates its own 503C, B, or whatever the right thing is, then that's it. But I think we just need to come to a consensus of like what that looks like. And I think that's a great opportunity to have a conversation about standardizing this, because it's too hard to juggle a bunch of different options. So I'm not saying that's the point. We need to come together. Like we talked about this in subcommittee. We've just got to build these things up, because athletics are not funded by the district. They're just not. And so if we're to do some things, then we need to reflect on how we can do this effectively, because most athletic programs outside of Chicago Public Schools have $500,000 to $1 million budget for their athletic program. We don't even have buses covered. And so these are things that we've got to talk through and see how we create sustainability.
So given, Mr. Coddens, go ahead.
Yeah. So where's our athletic director?
They will be starting hopefully the 16th. I don't know if we have it finalized on the date. And I can report that during the athletics.
And is that like someone who would be taking care of this, or is this an administrative thing? Right? It just seems like, well, I don't know. I never advocated for this, and again, as I said in that meeting, you know, work with capitalist companies and things happen. So like this is a total, like we're putting the horse before the cart here. Like now that we're all pissed off and feeling like we got screwed out of our money, we want to like go. Yeah, I don't know. I'm literally speechless.
Well, I think,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
so we have an immediate need to focus on the basketball. Okay. Are you proposing, Dr. Steinmiller, that this meeting also talk about an overall process, or is that a separate
I think
effort?
I think that we need to be aware of that as we're having this conversation, so that we can start thinking about, and anytime we have any situation, I always think of it as a case study. So we look at how these things are laid out so we can then build more consistency, standardized things. I'm not saying we lay out the plan, but we do need to reflect on what things could look like in different areas. And so I'm not saying we come with a resolution that all athletics will be this, but we need to go into any reflection with that type. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I propose.
I'm telling you, he's talking like
Get the funds, and now the funds are not available. Trips out of state that were paid for with the funds. Now we don't have any money. We have trips that were paid for out of state with funds that were collected for uniforms. We have a big, big mess. It is my thought. So I think we need to sort this out first. And I don't think that the processes for collecting for coaches doing fundraising are problematic. Personally, I think that all the other teams are taking care of everything the proper way.
Dr.
Okay,
Steinmiller.
so- Go ahead, please.
Okay. Can you clarify boosters versus LP accounts? Because I was told from some of my colleagues that an email went out to coaches, a few coaches, to have their booster money be put into an LP account. And I'm wondering why, if boosters are historically their own entity?
So depends on the fundraiser. All right. So anytime we have a fundraiser, and this is something we're talking about, why we have to have that end date, because we have our audit, we're being audited. It's our annual or every 4 years, whatever audit. And then we've improved a ton of processes. The one that we're seeing was most inconsistent over a period of time is fundraisers. Every time you do a fundraiser, you're supposed to put a bow on it. We anticipated making this much money. We made this much money. And so even if the fundraiser is done through a booster, we need to know what how much was raised. We approved it, but we don't know in some cases how much money was actually raised. The money itself in a booster, if its intent was for the continuous support of that team, and the booster is just holding it for future support of what the fundraiser was set for, fine. If it's set that it was set for purchasing volleyball nets, a very specific thing, and there's $1,000 remaining after the volleyball nets, that money should come to the school because we didn't vote for $1,000 for other things besides volleyball nets. And so that's an example of a fundraiser in which the bow was not put on, and we as an LSC have a responsibility. Now, this is way more because Brett, we've been talking with CPS. How does this work for boosters? And if Friends Up is an example of a organization external that does fundraising, we know their books. They share out, they report out how much they make, what it's being used for, the intent for it. And so Ms. Lopez in front of this, was asking for the final sums in this. And it's one of those in which from a variety of teams, and that's why I'm saying from a variety of teams, I don't know how much was made for that fundraiser. I don't think it was used in a negative way or this, but every fundraiser should have had, this is how much we made. And so this is an example, like that's why I keep going back to a case. I do agree. We have to address like the concern around this, but we've approved all these other fundraisers. And so within 10 days, we should get a response of, hey, we made $300. Oh, we didn't make enough this much money. Or, and so that's the email that went out to all the coaches, and I've got a document, and a lot of coaches have been able to respond and are able to document those things. But there are situations in which there isn't the documentation. And that to me is also troubling. I need to know that as a process. And so that's our edge of, I would say as a school, our edge of growth to improve our processes. Again, I don't think it was done in a negative way. I don't think that's the case, but I would like us to address this issue, but all in the same way, make sure that any fundraiser that we help clarify and increase communication of when the fundraiser is over, we need to know how much was made. So one of the things we talked about in subcommittee was when the end date is ended on a fundraiser, that we have an automatic timeline for when we should expect to know how much was made. But again, this is why we have to keep increasing this. And it's something that'll help us when we go into subcommittee and we say, hey, this finished on January 10th. How much did they make? We don't have that number yet. We should following up with them like, hey, we need to know how much you made, because there is a CPS document that has to be returned. And that's, again, that is a the auditor's not listening right now, but that's the one that if somebody were to audit us, I would expect we would get dinged on. And so I have my own frustrations. I feel like sometimes I don't think there's intentional like not sharing it, but there are certain money holding spaces that I don't know how much money is in that account. And it's not being shared with me. It'll be shared with the coach, but it won't be shared with me. And I'm the principal of the school. And it's an organization that is a team for our school. So I do have concerns about a variety of options of how money is just collected and shared. And I've expressed that before. And so we have to just continue to think about how we're streamlined, because then I don't want people doing things inconsistent with our expectations.
I guess the benefit of the boosters are they don't have all the red tape, right? They don't have to use a CPS vendor like we do, which is
fine.
Which is a drag to only use CPS vendors, because I do it all the time with OST. My other question is, will CPS sweep the funds at the end of the year like they do with other stuff, or is that just grants?
That is just student-based budgeting.
Like
funds.
OST. Okay.
Internal accounts and grants, they can't touch.
Okay. I do have,
All right.
go ahead. No, let's stay on this.
With the booster.
Yeah.
It is its own product.
Mhm.
They bifurcate all the funds. So, for a small team, it might not make sense that we provide free because you have to take the cost.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. It's a nonprofit, right?
yeah,
The 501.
to be positive they keep those buckets for the teams. Soccer has their own. I think they're not all of the other teams use.
Oh.
And the other option, schools account. It's limited. Your vendor, some people.
My
Okay.
last question about the budget real quick. So if we don't make all the money back from the dance and the 24,000, where's that money going to come from?
So it's already been expended. I mean, so the money is spent.
And then where did it come from, I guess? Student fees, you said?
Some were student fees, some were fees themselves. So the dance itself were all fees. They paid for it. It didn't come out of any of our accounts. So that was paid, like set up for students, paid by students. So that wasn't anything we had to budget. It was a fee.
Mhm.
The basketball, we put money forward to get in a timely way, get all the resources that they need. And so these are things that I like us to talk like further about, but the communication of the expectation of fees and making sure they're paid. And so that I'm working with the coaches, but also getting some other information about how.
I also want to just also reference the LSC reference guide that certainly needs updating by CPS in case any CPS officials listening. But there's a good section on fundraising guidelines. It's deep inside, so it's worth doing a control find on it, but it will run through all these examples and you'll start seeing, Angelica, like where the booster club maybe should be sharing more information with us and things like that.
Great. Thank you, Brad. All right, let's wrap this up and move forward. One last question, Dr. Steinmiller. Mr. Coddens raised a great question about the role of the athletic director in this process. I would assume they would have oversight responsibility going forward for how these things are happening. What about this meeting? Would you like us to make sure that the new athletic director is here? Could she join as a public member, just listening or something? I just don't want to delay, but I think her involvement would be helpful.
I absolutely agree. That's a good point. We have a section for athletic, just kind of trying to keep it in there.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
section.
Okay, so we're going to find a date and we'll try to work her in. Okay.
But I will.
All right. And I'll also underscore, I think Laura made a great point. I don't think there's any malice, but there's a lot of non-awareness that has happened here. So this is a learning moment for us. Let's do that so we can move forward. And then we can look at the whole thing. But right now, and I think Ted said basketball, this is the flashing red item. Okay. Next is the outside affiliated committee reports. This is the Friends of Lincoln Park High School. Sabrina Spitznagel normally does this, but she is not able to attend tonight. So she gave me a few points to just highlight. So I'd like to do that. The first is there are 2 dates coming up, February 20th and April 20th. February 20th is the monthly Friends of meeting, which is going to be in this room, February 20th at 6 p.m. That's a Tuesday. So that's not next Tuesday, but the one after. So please come and encourage people to come. The April 20th event is the Spring Parent Party. This is also another fundraising event that will be held in the evening of April 20th. So please look out in the newsletter and for ads about that to come. Encourage others to come. It's a great way to build community, get to meet other teachers, other parents, other grade levels. So please come, and that's that. The last one is a huge shout out to for last night, the trivia department, and quote, a huge shout out to the math department teachers who came to trivia night last night. It was the first time we've ever held this event, and it was a huge success. There were about 50 people there, a ton of fun, and they're still going through the math. It's not 10 days yet. It's which is the fundraiser. They think they made some money as well. So that's great. Mr. Coddens, I don't know if there's any just highlight you want to provide from last night. Were you in attendance or?
Yes, I was. And no, it was a nice time. I mean, I enjoy pub trivia, and
Okay.
that's why we went. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I talked on behalf of Mr. Drake a couple of times. There were a lot of parents there looking for him. Yeah, but it was nice to, hang out. So Maybe next time more people that work here in the building can also come, or maybe more parents. Yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Next, Dr. Steinmiller, principal's report. Over to you.
All right, let me, and I shared basically the principal's report, the paper version already with you with updates. But I also shared a deck with some data. I didn't get any real questions on it, but I know there might be some at the very end. But I just want to do a quick kind of review of that. In this, I'll also kind of bake in the athletic update. I do have a 5:30 hard stop. And so I'll kind of add into the principal's report, a part of it being just things around athletics. So we have extended an offer to an athletic director. Agreeing, it's a different process than others. You have to evaluate their resume and give a pay offer to them. They have to accept the offer of the pay, and then they can actually be onboarded. That's why you haven't heard names coming out, because until the name is official, then start date, we're kind of we just are not publicly using names. But I do believe that AD should be a part of all future actions. I do appreciate the investment of others to help support that person when they start. Now, Mr. Lascano is here. He's offered to be able to help support and with that as well as the head soccer coach. So there's some things that we have some wraparound supports for that person when they begin to get them onboarded right away. Our head coach vacancies, the only one we have right now is actually badminton. We thought we had somebody, but we don't. But we might have somebody else who just offered to be able to help. So badminton seems to be the one that we're really struggling with. And we have some now assistant coaches for lacrosse. We have a boys and girls lacrosse coach. We have a boys tennis coach. We actually have somebody volunteer to help with the boys tennis. So we have some pretty good situations when it comes to some of our athletics. We just need the AD to come in and help. Ms. Theus has been regularly outreaching to CPL to make sure that we get them onboarded as quickly as humanly possible. They're going through the volunteer process too, to also make sure they can start interacting with kids earlier. Again, we made announcements about sports and the successes of what's going on right now. That's kind of a super speed version for athletics, will be the next portion, so that I can get into this, which is this session we had dedicated to really kind of talk about some of our semester one reflections. Last time it was focusing on post-secondary. This is what happened semester one. We did have a PD day it had a grade level meeting, and our teachers, we went through some of this data with them. I'm going to share that with you. Right. I will slideshow it. Cool. And I'm gonna point out and just highlight some parts from each slide, but this is the type of data that I know as a senior leadership team we're going through on a regular basis. One of the major points of success that we want to focus on is freshmen on track. 97% is where we are ended with the first semester. That is an improvement. If you look at week 20, and it isn't actually week 20. I want to call that out. It's the end of the semester. Our first semester is shorter than our second semester. It's just called week 20 in the data we get. It's actually week 17 probably. But I want to make sure that Mr. Cottons wasn't calling me out for terrible math. And so you can see that we've been improving over 4 years with freshmen on track. One of our biggest concerns, as you can see there, is the end of the year drop. Last year went from 95 to 88. The year before that, 94 to 86. So there's this drop in second semester. This is a statistic that happens nationwide, but also in Chicago, is the third quarter slump. And so we're trying everything we can do to combat that. But you can see that we are making some progress with freshmen on track. You can also see that that's occurring within our subgroups. A group I want to highlight in this, couple of them, again, our Black male percentage of students going from 63 to 91. But one thing that I want to highlight as an area of concern for us to keep watching is our EL population. We're not finding we're at 93%, which is an improvement from last year. But this is an area in which I think we just have a lot of fluctuation with students coming in. We had 6 to 10 students this week enroll, maybe 6, but I don't want to. We had a large number. And so you can also see here that our students in temporary living situations where it's been consistently 100% on track, we're now at 78. That's for a variety of things, but we have to dig into that more. Positives, but I just want to highlight this. And you do have access to this deck. So if you want to go into this more and ask individual questions later, I'd be happy to do that. Similarly, we're plateauing for the most part, a little bit improvement with a sophomore on track. I wouldn't say this is significant because it's really only 1 to 2%. But again, you can see that we're still making some continued progress going into sophomore on track. And you can see similar patterns black male population of 71 to 91. And there's a reason I'm going to keep highlighting black male population is that we look at some of the other data, it was significantly lower than the rest of the subgroups. And that's why I was consistently bringing it up during our CIWP process. But here's where you can see some of our EL population drop, as well as our STLS, which has been all over the place for a couple of years. So these are some groups that we have to start focusing on, especially as we support classes with ESL endorsed teachers moving forward. This is 9th grade. You can see it as a whole, tons of numbers. But I'm going to just kind of keep going back to it. Black male population, 72% to 85%. If you look,
Can you move the
oh,
block to 80?
oh, my bad. This,
Close that window.
oh, that's on the other.
Oh, I think that's okay.
So just, and this is just an example, and you can look at the data for yourself, but if you look at like 2021 and you go down, the only group in the 70s is our black male population of students. And right now, the only group that is less than the 90th percent and 90% is again still black male population 85. And that's sort of a consistent pattern. You do see here at least some of the numbers as we're talking about our statistics and the data associated with it. Our EL and DL group is 7 students. When you have a smaller group, things can fluctuate a little bit more. So as we look at things, we're looking at our larger populations, DL being 32, EL being 59. We've made progress with our DL 79 to 86. You see 100% to 90% EL. So when I look for shifts, I'm looking for significant shifts in data. 72 to 85 is significant. When we look at like our 10th grade, 76 to 88. And I'm not saying that there aren't areas we need to keep highlighting, but our DL students going from 83 to 90, that 7% is pretty significant. But again, being that in 2021, every group was in the 90th percentile except for black male population of students, that's something that we're seeing some good positive trends. And 11th and 12th grade, you can see some shifts, 76 to 91, 84 to 93 of DL students. So this is where we have all of our students now in 90% or more. Our opportunity gaps between our students is minimizing while still demonstrating progress. 12th grade is a bit different. If you're off track and you're struggling your 9th, 10th, and 11th grade years, you don't become a senior. And so this data, you have to make it there first. And so you see the 90 to 91% is a little bit different because students would go to alternative schools, but they would drop out, not be a part of our data set. And that's why 12th grade can be a little bit more complicated. And that's why freshman track's so important. You're on track to graduate and become a senior. I'm so insanely proud of our teachers and our students for the consistency that you'll see as I go through these slides. Every content area, there has been a significant jump in pass rates for our black male students. Every single department has shown a significant increase in pass rates. Every one, not a single one was there a decline. Same thing with our diverse learners. And when we're looking at that in English, 88 to 92 for diverse learners, 83 to 92 for black males. In our INS department, social science, it's 88 to 90, not so significant for DL students, but again, 81 to 88. You see in math going from 77 to 88. You see 85 to 93 for diverse learners. You see for our science going from 75 to 86 for black male students, 83 to 93 for our diverse learners. Fine arts, 77 to 85. And my goal is then that we keep striving towards 90%, that we're supporting our students over this period of time. And I'll just kind of scroll through them and I can come back. I just want to make sure I go through all the data. Our language acquisition, our language acquisition went from 79 to 90. So actually breaking that threshold of being in the 70s to 90s, 80 to 93 for diverse learners. We see that we have co-taught classes in Spanish. We've been doing that for the last 2 to 3 years. And really, we've increased the amount of co-taught classes in Spanish to be able to support our students. Because you can see 80 is a significant jump to 93. If you have resources, you can be able to support students to be successful. PE JRTC is almost broken into the 90 percentile for black males and 76 to 89. Again, our wellness department has made some major shifts in how we're supporting diverse learners. What does that look like in some of our specific classes? It's pretty phenomenal. And then non-core, again, seeing the same types of jumps. So that says it to our pass rate. I know that was a lot and that was fast. If you have individual questions, I think actually emailing me, I can definitely do that. But anything for just pass rates, and I'll quickly then talk about just another brief. Yeah.
As a quick question, commenting on STLS, seeing that significant drop, is there a thought on remediation? Like what are the supports potentially? Because between that and EL,
Yeah.
like 10th grade on track, there's serious concerns there. And if the students return for junior year, that's going to be further frustrating for those students and for the faculty if we don't provide additional support.
This is a conversation that I'm part of a subgroup with our network talking about how we can support our ESL or ELL students. We're seeing just a large number of students coming in with zero schooling. And if you come in as a 16-year-old and you have 2 years to graduate, you're not going to graduate. So there's how as a district are we doing things differently to provide alternative education options to actually get a degree, a high school. And attendance rate isn't always consistent. Some of our students are working, and they're trying to raise funding. I'm not saying that's, and that's happening. This is district wide. And we're just saying inconsistency. Students are transitioning from one living situation to another, different schools. So the consistency is not there. Sorry, district wide. We also have to increase our supports and what that looks like. The expectation of the district on what an ELPT, who is the leader of this, is changed mid-year. That's not really something you can change mid-year and ask them to start working directly with all the teachers, especially when they're teaching ESL classes. So we have to start thinking about what we can do right now in preparation for I hate to say it, next year. In meeting again, I met with Mr. Pliss today about class offerings. We have to have ESL and algebra classes. We had a teacher who has, shifted to take on an extra class to teach a class that is focused on all our ESL English language learning students. And as you see through the data, I mean, that was one of the, and I appreciate the teacher jumping on to do that, that if you look at our EL data, we still see that we're at 91%. Like it's not as bad, but it's not where it could be. And if we look specifically at like some of our younger students, I mean, they're vulnerable to math is a language in itself. And so we have that support right now. And I think it's something that's really beneficial to our kids. So those are some things we've done right now. And then there's long-term planning about what our schedules, endorsements would look like. And there's some math teachers who are getting their ESL endorsements right now so that they can better support students in their classes.
The pass rate, does that mean just a D or better or what?
It means passing. Yeah, you're not failing a class. I still focus on B's or better. That's something for a mindset that I want our students to have. But pass rates means you're not failing class.
Does that actually provide you any meaningful data then? If it's just because I mean, it's vastly different an A student and a D student.
I have a whole separate document that has, and it drills down to individual students, classes, class types, teachers. This is data that we have as a senior leadership standpoint. I have B's are better, C's are better, and pass rates. And this is also where we can kind of get red flags if we see something like all this, like, and this is usually because something happened in grade book. It is usually not an error, but if we see that like 20% of students are passing a class with 140 students over the course, that's like what just happened. Usually like a grade was just entered, it threw things off and the teacher's working on it. But those are things that we do monitor and pay attention to.
Okay. Is that something else that you could share out with?
We can. That document has tons of student data in it, and it has teacher data. And I don't feel comfortable putting teacher data out in public either. And so I think it's something we could talk about what type of increase. If you want more specific data, I think we can drill down to it a little bit more. I just need to think about what that looks like.
Yeah, the specific.
Yeah.
Individuals.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you de-identify and just say this many students are getting B's, this many students are getting C's, I think.
We can work on that. Yeah, I think it's a good, that's a good data point to increase. And I have access to it. I can update that. This was still a lot, so I didn't want to super overwhelm everybody. This is the final thing of just an update. This is not as of like this week. This was a week, it's a little bit stale. But we did report on post-secondary. You can see that we're making some significant progress towards some of our goals, and also some of our achievement marks from last year. Exception in the college will continue to roll. The apps with affordability indicators, we're almost actually to our goal already, but we want to keep pushing that. And then our enrollment and our persistent, this is things that we do from like an alumni support, because we have, Ms. Tookie did an awesome job of identifying almost 5 to 10 student I don't have the exact number, so I'm just gonna say 5 to 10 who are going to university in Europe and they're not showing in our data. So our percentage of students who have actually enrolled are significantly higher than we have at this point. Our goal is 89.7, which would be the highest we've ever had at Lincoln Park. And I think we can achieve that because we're so close. We're at 85.9 and last year we're at 88.5. Our record's 88.6. So this is a way of cleaning up data, but also monitoring and supporting our students through alumni support. And there's some good recommendations. I know Ms. Kaler brought up some stuff last time about like how do we help students like in transitioning and making informed decisions from their sophomore to junior to senior years. There are things that we are also considering within this group to increase this. But as students identify the best fit university, they're more likely to one, enroll, two, persist. And that's due to the efforts of our teachers for preparing our students, but also helping them in the conversation. And there was a lot of great conversations I heard from teachers just about how they can have students who haven't applied. They went through a list and they're having one-on-one conversations with the students who didn't apply to any universities yet or apply to affordable indicator schools. And so our teachers have been doing some of that work one-on-one, as well as our counselors and our college career coach.
Is there a breakdown of those that were accepted that actually go to college versus, they get accepted but don't go?
I could look at that. We had 92% of our students last year were accepted into university, and our enrollment rate was 88.5. So that means 3.5% of our students did not go. And so the question is why, and that's the stuff we got to work with.
That last. So every student.
Right.
If every student had a D or higher, this would be the rate. And that we have to do, we have to start focusing on C's, B's too.
So I mean, that really.
Which is a progress towards, still, I'm not going to say that it's a lie, right? It's if you get your credit, you are now still able to advance towards graduation, because if you don't get the 24 credits, you don't graduate. And so even that, and I'm not saying D's are what we want, but that D is still a 0.5 credit towards graduation, where an F is, you don't get it. And that is the difference between, so freshmen on track, if that 3% are off track, are failing 2 classes basically. And so they have a 20% chance of graduating just because they failed 2 classes. 20% chance of graduating in 5 years. So that's significant of what 2 Fs mean. And so, yes, I appreciate, like, I get what you're saying. I can dig into B's and C's and more. I think I can give you the GPAs of it. Like, I have that data, so I can definitely share that. But I think right now, we were talking about at some point, we had 21% of our Black male students not passing language classes. They had 21% had Fs. And so
this is raising the bar. There's more to do, but we're now moving Fs to B's so they can move forward.
we want D's to C's, C's to B's. I think when we talk about excellence, you guys are preaching my language. I do have that. I just need to start here, because this is a starting point. Because now, as I look at this, is a great example. Everybody's in the 90%. Everybody pass rates are 90% across the board. So now, how do we get that? Let's keep that growing. I want to see 90 to 95%, and then I want to see then how do we then push the others? And I think that will be our next edge of data. But I just wanted to share out where our semester 1, where we were at.
And then the concept of the freshman on track, if they fail one class, they're still quote unquote on track.
Yeah, but if they fail the second, that's why you see this at the very top. Why you see then the second week 40, you see that drop goes from 95 to 85. If I fail one class semester 1, and it's more specific, but now we're seeing in research, is literally about any class. So a student may have failed one class that's a part of that 95% on track. They failed another class the second semester. Now they're off track. That's why you have a drop from 95 to 88. So we lose, that 7% of our students because they were kind of on track, not on track. And I know that's Mr. Stuckey and our team. We're looking at how he's putting supports for the students, getting them to do credit recovery in the second semester. That's why you're doing evening school. The evening school is so important, because we ask people to go to evening school somewhere else. They just don't do it. And then they just further get off track. And my goal is to get them on pace again. And so you could fail 3 classes. I want you to start getting on pace where you're now regaining credits. so that you're officially on track again over your sophomore year.
So then the classes that you're seeing here that they are failing, are those the class offerings that we're offering for night school?
Yeah. And it may not be every single one of them. I mean, if I have one student who's failing, just like, you need the class to make for evening school. So if it's like the one student who's failed underwater basket weaving, we're not going to offer it for the one student. It's CPS won't pay for it.
Okay. I suggest we move on. Paul? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, more work to do, but I think overall it's trending, some good things here. That SPLS is like crazy though. Like,
Yeah.
like you know that. Okay. Anything else you have?
And we did kind of in our process of just new and old business. I've just, in our people who spoke during public participation, there's been with the football, our head coach has just become, he's still a coach. There's been a swap in who is taking over the lead. Coach Ludwig is still a part of the team, still working with the players, but they just needed to make a switch. So this is all internal. So we still have the same coaching
Okay, so
staff.
he was on the coaching
Yeah.
team last year? Okay.
So it's
All
the
right.
same setup. And then I think there's other questions about, how do we push for, I've already messaged Mr. Frelick about making sure we're in touch with Ms. Hurd. So anytime we have an event for any of our performances, to just make sure she's aware and we can have that stuff moved. It's just a communication breakdown. And so I made sure that was linked. I already made that chat. I also made a chat with Mr. G to make sure to follow up with you and set up a meeting for next week. So that's already been done. Continue to reflect on some of the big picture things of our facilities. I mean, that is the stuff to do the auditorium. I mean, we're talking about $120,000 kind of deals, and it's just not, that stuff's just not cheap. And I bring it up every Monday in facilities meetings, and I just keep getting the nope. That's something we can talk about in future kind of planning of how do we do some of that work. But I just want to make sure I was covering some of the old business or new business that people brought up in public participation. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Ask for maybe some discretionary funds from the aldermen for maybe potentially for next year, having a special initiative because they do have additional funds for that.
Have not. We should. Thank you.
Just with testing coming up,
Yep.
can you give a 30 seconds on testing?
Yeah, testing. CPS listened to us. It was a window of time. You figure it out kind of like when testing was going to go. We will now have set days that are non-attendance days. So when we have our SAT for our juniors or seniors who have not taken the SAT, all our students do not have to be in attendance. It makes planning it impossible, honestly impossible. And then the day we have our PSAT for our 9th and our 10th graders, juniors and seniors will not have to be there. So we do not have to do a zoo field trip. Because that's what we had to do in the fall because we weren't in this position. Every other school in the district was messed up like that too. Our chief really advocated for us. It was heard, responded to. So those are set days for it. That's why I said I have to reschedule one of our assemblies because that was the 9th and that was one of the set days for the SAT, our PSAT. So we'll reschedule that assembly date and communicate that to our teachers. The plan for all of our AP and our IB, Mr. Konzen and Ms. Tukey have been working on that, communicating that from our mocks to then our other assessments. Those are laid out. Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
And access testing is taking place right now for all our English language learners as well.
Since the SAT and PSAT are virtual.
Digital.
Yeah, they're digital. Tomatoes. You've got the right technology you feel and the right setup.
We pushed it in the fall. We intentionally had everybody test the same day to see if we'd break it. I'd rather break it during the fall when it's not the SAT that determines if you can college or not. Charters has done a really great job with the infrastructure. And really it's about, we had to stagger logins because that's when you actually have the biggest dip. We were not that school or schools in which the entire system collapsed, which did happen at other schools. And this will actually be even better because we can have the PSAT and the SAT separate days. So we're not even straining it as much.
You had mentioned just another item of old business is the mall fencing and whatnot. I know maybe go later, but I just want to really reiterate the importance of talking with community leaders ASAP, because if hearing that the fence on Armitage may be happening in a month, the community doesn't even know about it. we invite the risk of a lot of bad press, a lot of complaints, a lot of just extra noise. So I really would encourage ASAP to be talking to those people.
At the Sheffield Neighborhood Association, brought it up with, the president of that group. I talked to the alderman at the time, setting up me to talk about it too. He and I are following up on that communication. Even when it is installed, doesn't mean, again, we're going to close it. Our indication, like if we were to do anything with it, there would just be even half closed just to keep cars from flying down, and people would still have access to it. So until we have plan of implementation, we will not close off access. So that gives us time to work with community groups. I also am meeting with some of the Lincoln Park specific groups and group leaders to talk about that. A couple of other things. I know Mr. Kessler has also set up kind of a connection with some people, so I appreciate you liaising those connections. And so it'll be over and over communication, but also the need of why this has to happen. I mean, I don't have to blast some of the reasons why, but if I have to, I will. I just need to make sure our students are absolutely safe at all times. And there's a sense of urgency. My job is to protect our teachers, staff, and our students. And if people driving cars 70 miles an hour, doing things they shouldn't, and it's not acceptable. Or trying to walk into our building. And when the mayor, who was in preparation for it, and they're planning to come, guess what door they all try to go through? There are bird cage. There are different spaces. So there are things that even people who are a part of CPS don't always know which way to come into our building.
Speaking of that, there were pictures online today that yesterday the chief of police and the mayor of Chicago was here. Do you want to provide an
Was
update?
not here. And due to just I won't go into it, but I think there's a lot of things going on with some CPS, and tragically there's been some things at other schools in which lives were lost. And my heart goes out to the students, the teachers, and that community, because that any loss of a student or anyone at a school is just devastating. The focus of this conversation was specifically on safety here in Lincoln Park, and that was the narrative. They changed the location to a different place, but I was able to at least get 2 of our LSC members. Koya couldn't make it because she was at therapy, but and Ms. Theus joined me, and so the 4 of us were able to have a presence, but also have a brief moment just with the mayor, just to explain that we'd still like to have you come by our school. There are needs at our school, and we definitely want to talk more about it, and had a good conversation about his experiences as a teacher and as an educator in the area, and understanding that we do have needs and how we could get that support. So that was a positive opportunity. And then somebody was in the limelight literally the entire time, which was a nice shift to put Alexander right there, because we know eventually he might actually be the person speaking in one of these events. So.
You want that to be in the
I want a strategy first. I want a clear strategy and timeline before. And so even if they install it, I'm okay with just keeping it like open. But I want to think of like what signage goes up. What does that look like in communication? What are the alternative routes? We talked to other groups. We give them flyers beforehand. They're aware of the alternate routes. They're aware of the why behind it, but also have other infrastructures of like, how do parents know where to go to come into the main building? Where do students go out for off campus since this will not be just a free for all? So there's a lot of things that will have to shift that will require tons of communication. I will share that outline of the communication timeline with y'all before enacting anything. So it's something for us to be aware of. Just know that that's just not where we're at yet. Any specific for me, because it is 5:30 and I really I apologize for not being for the Student Voice Committee presentation.
Which one?
But we can review one on.
He did the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we have just committee reports. So we have students, we have PPLC, and then we have safety, security, community relations, principal of eval, facilities, student life. I don't know if there's anything from there that anyone from the LSC would like to ask Dr. Steinmiller.
I'm just wondering, Chair, whether it's okay with Dr. Steinmiller, maybe if AP Theus is here, if AP Theus can sit in the seat. If that's okay with
we
the
would
chair.
love to have her if she would
Yeah.
like to join.
Just so
but-
there's administration presence, especially for student voice.
What a great idea, Mr. Kessler. Thank you for suggesting that. Okay.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
apologize.
Should we vote for her inclusion? I'm not sure.
Should we what?
Should we vote for her inclusion? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. She may say stuff though. I mean, We probably should. I think we should, yeah. So since Dr. Steinmiller, he did communicate to me in advance, we had to leave, and I think we spent more time looking at some of the student data and whatnot. So I'm sorry that we're going to go just a little bit more, but so anyway, he's asking Miss Theus to step in his place, our assistant principal. Is there a motion to allow her to participate in his stead? Okay, Mr. Kessler, is there a second? Okay, Laura, all those in favor? Any opposed? No, I think we're unanimous. Thanks. Welcome to the party.
Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
You have a lot more hair than the last person who was sitting here.
A little-
Okay.
little-
All right. So what we do now is actually our student voice and student life reports are next. So I'll turn it over to you all.
Okay, so for our report, we have attached a slide presentation. If you guys wouldn't mind pulling that up, please.
Connected to no one's email. Yeah. The man who has your presentation just left.
Peter has it. Do that. I can also forward it to them if that would be faster. Okay.
You want to, you want to
Yeah, sure. All right, so yeah, just while we're waiting, so just talking about demographics first. So we ended up having 638 responses, which is a little bit over a quarter of all students. 29.2% being juniors, 21.6 being seniors, 24.3 being freshmen, and 24.9 being sophomores. In terms of programs, we made sure to pull a diverse group of students from different programs, including the majority of our respondents came from the IB Middle Years program, the IB Diploma program, the Double Honors program, the arts programs, and just standard honors programs. Just wait a second until we start getting into the issues.
And for reference, we sent this out January 11th, the first Friday we returned back from break, and we had teachers put it in their Google Classrooms. We had it in grade classrooms, I believe. And yeah, we approached it to assemblies or four.
Yeah, we presented 4 assemblies, and we also sent students out to lunchrooms to poll students during their lunch periods.
Again, I'm just forwarding your email, but I'm removing the closed session file.
Okay.
Should be.
Yes.
Yep.
He's gonna press next.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, so we'll start with the slides that starts talking about homework and assignment policy. One more. All right, there we go. So the first question we asked, the policies regarding late work and missing work in my classes are clearly presented and diligently enforced. We had about 50% of students saying that they'd agreed, 75% saying that they either agreed or strongly disagreed, and we had, oh, sorry, the statistics aren't on this presentation. Would you mind moving forward one slide? And then also what we did was we, after every question, we included a place for students to leave individual comments about their experiences, and we pulled the ones that we thought just offer the most constructive elaborations, as we like to call it. There were many that left very positive feedbacks, things, but these are ones that we see as ways that we can take action items and just a little bit more indicative of, ways that we can improve. So starting with different teachers have different expectations. Some teachers aren't clear in their late work policies, yet they get mad when we don't know them. A lot of my teachers loosely speak about their late work policies, but fail to properly enforce them. A late work form is provided by my teachers in some classes, which is a more efficient way to keep track of missing assignments. And I picked degree because in most of my classes, I feel like they are, but there are some times where they are not. So generally, the theme that we start to see is where a lot of the people that are hitting agree because it's in most of their classes, but there still is some inconsistency within, different departments, different teachers, and different programs. And that's really what we're going to be looking to address as a student voice committee. All right, next slide. Assignment grades in my classes are entered with relative timeliness and allow adequate time for revisions. So this is another one where we saw positive results, about 50% of students saying that they either agree or strongly agree, pardon me. But this one had a little bit more negative feedback, with about 14 to 15% of students saying that they didn't agree. Next slide. And then for the notable constructive elaborations, some of my teachers grade really quickly, but others take weeks to grade assignments. Some grades are entered at the end of the quarter, resulting in a grade change that I'm not aware of. Some of my teachers left grading till the last minute, and it was detrimental to some of our grades. Some teachers don't put in grades till almost the end of the quarter. My teachers very frequently fall behind on grading. As time consuming as it is, at some point, we as students need to know what we got wrong so we can study it before the course moves on. And oftentimes teachers grade closer to grade deadlines, especially at the end of the semester, making it harder to learn from our revise. So sort of sticking with that the theme of the previous sessions, where generally we do see positive feedback, but the main takeaway is that there are some inconsistencies between classes. Next slide. Thank you. Homework assigned in my classes is relevant to course material, not busy work. This is the one where we saw probably the most positive feedback, with over 70% of students saying that they fully agreed with this. Next slide. The amount of homework in my classes directly affects my mental or physical health and or my ability to fulfill outside responsibilities, such as extracurriculars, work, caring for family, etc. This is the one where we had the most negative responses. Over 50% of students said that the course load had either slightly or strongly negative effects on their health and ability to fulfill outside responsibilities, with only around probably 25% saying that it had any sort of positive effect. Next slide. And then for the elaborations on this, I'm unable to sustain a healthy social life and complete my work. It literally dictates my day. When almost all classes give homework at the same time, it's overwhelming, especially when the homework takes a good amount of time to do. How much homework I have and how hard it is directly correlates with my ability to take care of myself and my family. And if I have more homework, I have less time after school for responsibilities, and my mental health is also usually affected in terms of stress. So then switching gears, we have we're not given those statistics. So then with health, safety, and security, very strong numbers here. We polled students about how safe or unsafe they felt from different types of harm, including physical harm, harassment, theft, bullying, and cyberbullying. The only one where we really saw some strong negative feedback is theft, and that is something that we have mentioned to the LSC a few times and also talked about it quite often in Student Voice Committee. There's been an issue recently where a lot of people have had things stolen out of their bags in the gym locker rooms. We have recommended, and we will probably continue to support increasing security presence there. Mr. Lizcano was at our Student Voice Committee meeting this past Monday, and he is bringing that up with the wellness team and just looking for ways that we can get more presence in the locker rooms during class periods, and also addressing a problem where several students have been known to like skip classes and just go there and hang out. Just trying to make sure that students feel free from, doubt that their things could be stolen while they're in PE. And also, this is something just to note, I only included one or two occurrences of this within the elaborations, but this was something that was brought up, I'd say, every 3 responses. I'm guessing we had about 30 people mention this. Lots of people getting stuff stolen from gym lockers. This was mentioned during the closed session meeting, but no one did anything about a swastika drawn on a wall. Fights are common at the school. Bathrooms can be extremely dirty. 90% of kids vape and smoke inside the school. The security here can be lax at times. At the beginning of the day, it's great. However, when my dad went to visit me, he just walked through with no question or alarm. The students have a hard time respecting what's personal business and what isn't. They post everything on the internet and use the internet to gain traction for things that can be dangerous. And I feel I am as an individual, pardon me, I feel I'm an individual of marginalized minority on many fronts, and I think I'm prone to teasing. There are times where I do feel slightly unsafe within the school, and I literally got my car stolen and the school did nothing. So individual concerns that, span a broad variety of concerns, when it comes to theft, when it comes to harassment, when it comes to cyberbullying. And these are all things that, we as a Student Voice Committee are talking more about initiatives and ways that we as an LSC can help support the students that are facing these. How would you describe your satisfaction with the quality and accessibility of mental health supports at Lincoln Park High School? Now, this is one where we would like to see some improvement. Only about half the students saying that they are very satisfied or satisfied. And next slide, please. One of the main takeaways in the elaborations and ones that are displayed and not displayed is that students are generally quite happy with the quality of this support, but they just feel like it's not necessarily being communicated to them in a way that's very visible at all times. That's something that that the Student Voice Committee has had some really great conversations with Mr. G about. And that's something that we are, still going to continue to work towards and just make those supports a little bit more present. And then also I just included Miss Sturgis, who's a school social worker. There were many people in the comments talking about how great she was and how supportive she as an individual was. So just wanted to recognize her efforts. And then another one, 69% of students said that they would benefit from more designated emotional learning spaces at Lincoln Park High School, including the Peace Room. And we had Mr. Fish, the school psychologist, come to one of our meetings. And one thing that came from those discussions was we feel that there's a need for a peace room or a social and emotional learning space in the freshman building, because that's a quarter of the students at Lincoln Park High School. And if they want to have, direct contact, with a peace room or other type of space, they have to come to the main building, which is a considerable obstacle for them.
Okay, so I'm going to be taking over for culture and environment. So the first question we asked was, the teachers and administrative body staff at Lincoln Park High School is adequately representative of our diverse student body? And I would say overall, this is definitely very positive. We had to have 46.4% saying agree and 19.7% saying strongly agree. And then in the smaller margins, we had only 24 students, 3.8% say disagree, and 10 students, 1.6% say they strongly disagree. So this was definitely a positive takeaway. Going on to the next slide, please. For notable constructive elaborations, we have, it is in the middle. I feel like LP can do better at advocating for more diversity and programs for everybody. We have, I think the staff is a little disproportionately white compared to the students, but on the whole is considerably diverse. And lastly, I feel like we as Hispanics don't get represented much. For example, Hispanic Heritage Month, we didn't do an assembly, which a lot of other schools do. Next slide, please. Then we went on to ask, teachers and administrators are actively involved in the school community outside of instructional time and make an effort to form positive connections with students. Overall, this was positive as well. I would say the 13.2% can definitely use improvement, but the fact that probably over 75% agreed to the statement or felt neutral is pretty positive. Next question was, events held by the school, dances, sporting events, etc., are enjoyable and foster a sense of community. Once again, very positive, lots of agree, strongly agree, neutral would take up the majority of this pie graph. Moving on to communications, this was definitely an interesting one to explore considering last year's survey. We had questions based on communications as well. So firstly, we did kind of this graph to show culture and environment and how would you rate the effectiveness of communications in regards to the following events, most of this being pretty positive, which is great.
And also, I would like to see that this is probably the statistic where we saw the most improvement from last year. So just a big shout out to everyone involved in communications at the school for seeing that jump.
And for context, last year our question was how effective is communication from LP on a scale of 1 to 5? So fairly different from how we phrased this question, just because we wanted to gather more specific statistics. And what we received last year was that 266 students said that it was around a 3 and 230 said 4. So in that 3 to 4 range was the majority of our feedback. On to the next slide, please. So some notable constructive elaborations include I've missed multiple opportunities to sign up for clubs because I wasn't notified when they were accepting signups. This was really major. I know we've been talking about this the past couple local school council meetings as well as the communications committee, but there does seem to be a lack of communication surrounding clubs, and I think there's definitely room for improvement. And I know Ms. Zemnick is working on that right now. Going on to that, we have art performances like concerts are never communicated. There were a variety of responses referring just to like choir and art and that kind of areas. Next, I have yet to see more than 3 times total in any email across all of high school about mental health supports. I barely see anything about clubs without going very out of my way to. Once again, mental health was another big thing that was mentioned constantly. I feel that I am oftentimes confused about when testing will happen, where and for what. And lastly, there are always lots of messages about all of the above events in the newsletter, as well as announcements and flyers. However, I feel like mental health resources aren't as advertised as they could be. For example, I didn't even know where the peace room was or anything about it. So going off that, and similar to one of the things Alex addressed earlier, is that we're going to work to improve a second kind of peace room for students to turn, hopefully improve their mental health when at school. On to the next slide, please. In what ways do you frequently receive information about school news and events? The most common was email with 568 students responding, which is definitely positive. And we got some word of mouth, social media, Google Classroom, newsletter, and teachers. And the rest were just like things that students had entered, like phone call and on the intercom, all of that sort of stuff. So on to facilities. We've been discussing this a lot as the Student Voice Committee. On to the next slide. Yeah, that's perfect. How would you rate the cleanliness of the following facilities? So we have bathrooms, classrooms, hallways, outdoor areas, and locker rooms. I would say the most noticeable is definitely bathrooms and locker rooms. And one of the proposed initiatives that one of the Student Voice Committee members mentioned was similar to having more assemblies, have one based on what can students do. I think we place a lot of emphasis on the janitorial staff, but there's more that students can do, I would say, since they're definitely outnumber them. And so kind of prioritizing that and mentioning that in an upcoming assembly would be a great start. Lastly, we're going to go over general recommendations.
Yeah, so after all of the like the specified questions about specific policies, we just left a general bank where people can leave any suggestions that they had or anything else that we didn't mention specifically. One is promoting the diversity clubs events better to bring more awareness. This is also something that was brought up at the last Student Voice Committee meeting, and some work is being done to help recruit a teacher to lead a Black student union, which is something that we've had in the past, but the person that was taking the lead on that, I believe, is on leave now. So
we had a teacher sign up for it today.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. So really going forward, along with the comment that I think a cultures fair would be a good way for LP students to learn more about cultures present in the student body here. We really want diversity to be one of our focuses for this year through initiatives. We think that there's one of the things that makes Lincoln Park so unique and such an incredible experience for all the school, for every student, is the diversity of the student body. And we really want that to be something that's highlighted more by administration through school events. And we think that there are some really great ways to do that through some of these comments. More ways to prevent sexual assault. A lot of the boys do not respect the space of the girls. That was something that was mentioned here, but I think we should take into consideration along with the safety and security data. One suggestion for a block schedule in a study hall. That's something that's been a common request, but that's made very difficult by just scheduling concerns with the size of the student body. Giving more support to JROTC. and then also a bit less cost for dances for easier access to students to spend time with friends. So that is all of the data that we've collected specifically. Right now, what the Student Voice Committee is doing is we're having meetings with our advisory board, which is a group of teachers that we get input on for, different logistics across the school. Anyone from the LSC is encouraged to join meetings to provide input on initiatives. We meet every Monday right after school down in room 029. And right now, what we're just doing is we're having these conversations about what next steps look like. Like, what are the things that we as an LSC, we as, a school, what the administration and what teachers and what students can do to help improve these numbers and help improve, just the student experience in general. So we're going to have a whole presentation for those next steps next month. And that's really something that we're looking forward to working on as a club and working towards as an LSC.
I'll just briefly comment that like the level of thought and energy that went into that, the question format, the answer format. I mean, everything was so brilliantly done, and it's incredibly valuable. So thank you, and thank you for taking this so professionally and seriously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and thank you. And thank you for, all of the work that we're going to be doing going forward to help make improvements based off of this. And also just a shout out to everyone in the Student Voice Committee, because we have been working on this for a very, very long time. And everyone has been working incredibly, incredibly hard. And it's just so rewarding to know that real improvements are going to be made based off of the work that everyone has done. So thank you.
Next up, our school report.
Sure. Last time we had a PPLC meeting, I was actually absent, but I read through the minutes and talked with a few people. We have no motions at the moment. There are subcommittees discussing things as bell schedule and flex options, as well as I mean, we're very excited about the rollout of this cell phone policy. It'll be interesting to see if there's actual teeth to it. Much like a lot of the concerns that you guys just brought up in Student Voice, us at PPLC, we make all kinds of recommendations and suggestions, but if nothing actually is ever acted upon or changed, then we're speaking into the void. So at the moment, nothing to fill that void with. Thank you.
Sure. We are, just so folks know, we've had scheduling difficulties, but we are moving forward on the second Monday of each month from 10:45 a.m. to 11:30. So second Monday of each month, we're gonna have facilities meeting at 10:45. It sounds like we are only down one custodian right now compared to what the state of Florida is. So that's a big change. The custodians, though, have not been using a tracker, much like the engineers do. And the engineers tracker is really effective. It's something that I know Mr. Chalmers, Mr. Cottons, and I looked at, where it really tracks, what the status of it is and the date it's been achieved and how many different tickets have been closed. The custodian tracker doesn't do any such thing. And so we have adjusted the tracker to try to list so that we can actually get feedback on bathrooms and how often bathrooms are being, et cetera, and dates on it. So it sounds like it's a pretty basic improvement, but hopefully it does the trick for some things.
Actually, Brad, if I may interject really quickly, I have noticed a lack of supplies like soap in the freshman building boys bathroom recently, for example. But to address those issues prior, we had, eventually put in these QR codes. Those posters get ripped off the wall and there's like no QR code in there, right? So I'm like trying to wash my hands and I can't even complain about there not being soap. Miss Veronica Hurd is already spread incredibly thin, doing like literally everything at this building, both buildings. At the time, I didn't want to necessarily just put something immediately on her plate like that, but something to consider as far as the permanence of those signs. And I don't know, man,
I'll add
done.
that to the agenda.
It's just,
Yeah.
I wanted to say it out loud as I had you here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll add that to the agenda so that we can think about a more permanency for QR codes in our flyers. The one neat thing about like robotics club and some opportunities to use robotics club to help improve some of the spaces is they actually were able to mimic through 3D printing a light fixture for one of the rows in the auditorium, because they didn't make the metal light fixture anymore. So they were able to augment it with also a metal type frame. It looks really neat. I saw a photo of it. Hopefully we can share it among the LSC. So just an opportunity for clubs here to improve facilities. The engineer is still categorizing paint colors, to make sure that in case, we have changes over years in engineers, we have a list of the different types of paints we use. This should be a lot easier than it is, but we know that whatever this color is, maybe it's outdated by now. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's trying to be a common ceiling, which is like an off-white or so. So like the engineer is trying to make sure there's a decent amount of rooms and it's getting piecemealed. I mean, we know that this room, you can see that like the water damage in the corner over there that I'm sure the camera can't capture because it's right there. But that's probably long-lasting water damage. That's not going to be settled with just, a couple coats of paint. So when we talk about investments over years, it's another category for, what Angelica was saying earlier too, is just if we understand our budgets ahead of time and we plan out for the year, we can make these hard choices. Are we going to help out the wall over there? Are we going to help out curtain? Are we going to help out students with CLS? What have you? So, on the fence, yes, everything that Dr. Steinmiller said, I know that various folks inside the school, we are advocating heavily to reach out to community members. The CPS seems that it's easier for CPS to approve an extension of the fence that's on Armitage already to create a gate than it is to approve the other side, which would follow into our main entrance over here. And so that potentially could be months down the road, and that's at a greater cost, as opposed to just connecting fences on Armitage, because it would be building a fence, laying, certain cement, moving sidewalk, et cetera. So it is right now, my own personal opinion is it's still half baked. And so what I'm afraid could happen is that, yeah, we could impede cars coming through, but there's still massive access to mall from another side. So if the goal is safety from individuals running or adults accessing the mall when they shouldn't or whatnot, we haven't achieved that. So this is still a work in progress. It sounds like Dr. Steinmiller with CPS, especially since the tragic shootings that have happened, there's been heightened attention to try to approve things like this. So I am going to work, and hopefully our LSC is behind this too, but get a commitment that if we do install a gate, it still allows pedestrian traffic, especially so that we don't have pedestrians coming from one side of the mall and then not having an exit point out of the other, who will then just start congregating, and bottlenecking, whether they have dogs or otherwise, as they dead end into the Armitage fencing. So this is continuing to kind of, it went, 10 steps behind and then 20 steps forward. We'll see where it ends up. If I can answer any questions on it. My anticipation is that there is an opportunity. There's been nothing purchased. What I heard last week, because the parking lot fencing, has something that was installed in the last couple of years that's a rolling fence, that'd be something similar to that. And they're not replacing any other fencing. So it's gonna keep, a similar model to it.
Has there been any community issues or with the fencing, any feedback?
No, I mean, I really don't think much has been shared with the community. I know that it is a stated walkway that is in CDOT, so Chicago Department of Transportation. So this is like a street, so to say. So blocking access it's a big deal. And so that's why things started slowing down with the idea generation of how to create a safe campus that has a boundary to grown-ups coming in unannounced. But now because of the various students that have been shot and killed, in the area, and not in this specific area, but in the citywide, it's, I think, created a heightened sense. So what my goal right now, and I think others on the LSC and in the community, is just trying to say, okay, let's get community buy-in, because it could theoretically, when you create a fence, it's the question, are you keeping people out or are you keeping people in? Right. And so it's a good idea to involve the school community and the outside community in it. I'm not sure I can hold the keys to that answer, but I know that there are not many CPS buildings with two campuses. So like Kenwood is one of them, for example, and they've got a bridge that connects the two campuses. So that's a unique factor here that, students in transition. The other thing that I think everyone's noted, and this is not a surprise to anyone listening in the public, is that during the day, it's incredibly difficult to keep the school safe during the day from outside folks, because if there was the use of tracking and monitoring metal detectors and student IDs during the day, it would dramatically slow down transition periods and make every kid even later in class. And so it is tough to keep the school safe because of the open campus. I would say that it's inherently not safe because there's no way with the amount of ebb and flow. So yes, I would say, absent, like, not, the community needs to have buy-in because it changes some of the landscape of the community. And the school community needs to have buy-in because it impacts the school community. But I very much believe that it creates a safer space for the school.
Any idea where our signs are? Like we referenced earlier, the mayor's people coming in and doing a walkthrough. Again, my classroom's right across from where anyone who's never been here tries to walk into. And I have been, since I've sat on this LSC, asking for better signage outside. For example, our parking lot, it has signs that say exit only and enter only. When I brought that up, the engineer shrugged it off as like, well, is it really bothering anyone? And I said, the signage is wrong. It should not be up. And that's where it died. We continually do not communicate well with people visiting our building. Any update on our sign machine? Because this is what I'm talking about. Like, we just make suggestions, they go into the void, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, the sign machine, I've been talking about it again and again. And I know Angelica was in conversation, I think, with Dr. Steinmiller about any use of OST funds, which I don't think you determined necessarily there was opportunity for it. It's on hold. Okay. So yeah, it's still remaining in this $3,000 or $4,000, needed dollar amount to afford the printing machine. I think that's something that we can talk about in the facility subcommittee, because if there's an opportunity or friends of a group or someone else can help to fund it, then the robotics club theoretically probably can, help to raise some of the dollars back, or the engineer in terms of providing supplies to other schools. So I think we have to revisit it in the subcommittee, but it's on the engineer's mind, I know, very frequently. I'll ask.
That was facilities. Oh, facilities. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. So in mid-January, some of us went over to Lane Tech to see how they run the school over there, how they handle their cell phone policy, their transitions, how they run the school, because our schools are similar. So we met with their deans and met with the principal and also the AP to figure out what can we do to support our students. We know that attendance has not been where we would like for it to be. We know cuts are really high. We also know teachers are having struggles in the classrooms with cell phones. We know that's probably worldwide in regards to cell phones. So we plan on adopting a policy going forward in regards to cell phone. We talked about it in the PPLC and what that looks like. It'll pretty much be all hands on deck. Everybody had to be involved. I know students will have questions and be looking for answers and want to know why. And obviously the biggest thing is to get them to focus on their education and also allow their teachers to teach them. So that would be one of the biggest reasons in regards to the cell phone policy. And then also we know a lot of things going behind the scenes, conflict, arguments. We deal with a lot of that, and a lot of those things are happening with student cell phone devices. That's which has been a challenge for us. So I'm pretty excited about that. We plan on rolling that out in April. I'm not sure the exact day in April we plan on doing that, but it'll definitely be back. We'll do that when we come back from spring break. But teachers will have the autonomy to adopt the policy in the way and the fashion that works for their class. And our jobs would be as deans is to support those teachers with assisting them with any issues that they have with the students. My suggestion will always be have those conversations and give the students the why. I think that's when you get the buy-in, and then also allowing those students to be part of what they want that to look like in their classrooms. So yeah, that's the news on the cell phone policy. And then also I met with Ms. Theus and also the attendance team on what can we do in regards to cuts. Which is really big. So we plan on changing how our students transition, having them have a exit and interest when they go out for lunch and when they return to lunch. So we'll put that information out as well. Then we also have our transition doors that we use. A lot of times it's difficult. We have 12 security officers, but a lot of times we short staff. We may have 6 to 7 security officers in the building. So we will be asking for assistance from our teachers or anyone that want to help through this process. I will always say all hands on deck approach is the only way that we can get some things done. It's not up to one department or one group of individuals. Will always have to be all hands on deck to get something like this established. So that's pretty much where we at in regards to safety and security, unless anyone have any questions for me. What I would say is I just want our kids to be safe. I don't want it to be one of those incidents where someone decided to ride through our mall and run into our students. And we having a difficult time of keeping our kids safe. And we know a lot of times changes are not made until something tragic happens. So we need to do everything in our power to prevent something like that from happening, because we don't have the resources, and no one has really given us on guidance on how to keep our kids safe with this structure. We've been dealing with this for a long time. Thankful, we haven't had nothing that will just how can I put it? It's a soft spot for me, right? Because when you hear the parents and you hear the students and the struggles and the things that's going on outside these walls, it's a challenge because things happen every day. You know, we don't know. So if we do have a perimeter or some borders or something to not just let people just walk in and out, I think that's a big deal, and I think it'd be beneficial. Any other questions? That's all I have. Yeah.
Well, hey, I've been hearing that your microphone is not working here. Thanks. Sorry about that, people online. Thanks for the feedback. Community relations. Okay, thank you. Do you have any thoughts on the community engagement around the fence? Do you have concerns?
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Great. Thank you. Oh, okay. Let's see. Principal evaluation. So we have finished our cumulative. As everyone knows, we do have to do one for the annual. So that's going to be due in May. We don't have to take any action right now, but I do think that we'll want to be looking for someone from the LSC to lead that process. I think it would be great to have someone do that. We're using the new format that we have, the new criteria. So more to come. We'll be setting up some meetings to discuss that, but that's just something for people to think about. And otherwise, we are meeting. We did meet with Dr. Steinmiller to get an update on some of the feedback items from the evaluation in closed session. That's going to be something we continue to do. So we make sure we're taking action on those things and making progress. Communication, I think, is Ms. Zemnick, unless someone else has an update on communication. She's not here today. She was not able to be here. Facilities, we did with safety security. So I think we're good then. So now we have a chance for public participation. So please come up we have 2 minutes to make a statement if you'd like.
Well, it's okay. I guess it's just not really a step. 3 things. One is
Could
thank
you
you
say
again.
your name and
Oh, Jenny Rosenthal, parents, Lincoln Park student parent.
Thank you.
3 things. One, thank you again for your service, everybody. We really appreciate all the work you do. So thank you for that. Regarding there was a comment in the student voice presentation about the dance expense being too much. And I feel like I'm rally on these parent Facebook pages, like how can we help the students that want to attend? And I know we've got prom, I think is the last dance for the school year for seniors only. Is that correct?
Maybe, and yes.
Okay. So recently, whatever the last dance was, winter form, whatever the last dance, some parents were like, because there was an effort to sponsor a student, and somebody had said, whatever it was, $50 is a lot. I wish there was a fund so I can contribute. I can't contribute 50. So just throwing that out there for prom, I think more people would contribute if they didn't have to pay out 100, like for this one, whatever the fee's going to be. So, because I think that these dances are really important, and we really want, I think as parents, we want really all the kids to participate and be able to attend. So if you could consider a fund for the prom or whatever else dances there, but definitely the prom, because that's like a big deal for these seniors. The signs about the dogs, we've also been talking about this for like 2 years. Okay. I've seen the signs from an alderman, Brian Hopkins, in a different community. Their signs, please don't. Steinmiller said they put the signs out and people throw them away. So I don't think there's an easy solution, but at the very least, we should try to get our alderman, Timmy, to give us some signs to put out there. That school property, that this is school property. We do have police officers are here on the weekends because I've seen them when I'm picking up trash. They are stopping people, but nobody listens. And then I think I had one more thing. Hang on a minute. What was it? Sign prompt. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenthal. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Lascano.
Hi guys. I'm Eric Lascano. I'm a wellness teacher. I have two things. One I just thought of. We're talking about the dogs and creating signs. Out front we had the Alan Nunez Zen Garden. Some of you guys are very aware of who Alan Nunez was, and it's definitely a soft spot in the wellness department, and a lot of the teachers here. And me personally, I kind of find it disrespectful and offensive when I see dogs in there pooping. So if we could get signs up there, I think that'd be great. My second comment has to do with the facilities. And we were talking about painting in the gym or paints in general. And this might be selfish because I'm a wellness teacher and I also used to coach. But our main gym is 3 different colors. Our murals are outdated. And I think that one, if we hold athletic events there, such as basketball and volleyball, we're representing our school. We have fans coming there. We have community coming there. We rent out our gym to Chicago Sport and Social. So we have, people from all over the community coming in. So if we are considering painting, I would advocate for trying to paint our gym more modern. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Anyone else? I'm going to go check online. Question. I think you can see it there, but oh yeah, it says I joined late but heard something mentioned about the school dance. Perhaps this was already discussed, but I missed it. Was the entire dance covered by the ticket sales? Also, a lot of parents and community members had questions online about the last minute fundraising effort to sponsor tickets. Many thought the dance was too expensive. Why are the dances so expensive and inaccessible to all? For those who can't afford it, what's the school doing to support paying for the dance and tickets outside of trying to fundraise from the community? So I don't know, Miss Diaz, would you like to?
Sure. Anytime we have an event outside of LP, it's at minimum $50,000 minimum. And that goes from the dances to winter formal to and prom is even more expensive. So when you look at the number of students that go to the dances, which generally are about 1,000 students, give or take, it has to be $50 to support the event because we use them as fundraisers for busing for athletics. So the whole thing is a fundraiser. Yes, it's a lot of fun. Yes, it's $50. It's a extracurricular activity, so students do not have to go, but certainly we want them to go to build a culture in this school. But we don't have the funds to cover every student who wants to go that can't afford to go. One thing I was talked to a couple people about and some student life members today is to have an end of the year event here on campus, have a huge block party, here. So it is affordable and everybody does have an opportunity to go. And it still, has all of the niceties that we have in the off-campus events, but spaces are very, very expensive while I'm talking. Just to give everybody a heads up, the prom location is going to change. I released the date at the Field Museum because we simply cannot afford it at $150 a student. The event space alone is $30,000, and that's before we eat anything. And the cheapest meal I was able to get was $108 per student. So we can't afford it. And our class is small this year. So I've got a couple other venues in mind for the same date. So I'll do some site visits. Next month, I'll have a firm location and we'll get that out. But these places are very expensive to have these events in Chicago. And so that's why it's generally $50.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I think we're at the end of our time. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mr. Codden, is there a second? Alicia, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
Not
sec.
Not bad. Yeah.